Hi everyone. I wanted to make sort of a continuation / extension video from the one published on Sunday this weekend on a few examples on rejection blocks. I know I have already covered a few things in the previous video on the intra-week update. If you haven't, I'm going to link it up here somewhere, or you could just check on the channel because it's going to be the previous video before this one. So you would know that I'm ultimately looking for higher prices on NASDAQ, right? You would also know that I'm aiming for those equal highs at some point this week. Then a possibility of that buy side liquidity, which is essentially the all-time high on NASDAQ later on this week if we really get animated to the upside. So yesterday, Monday, you may have not caught the low of the week, at least so far, but there was an entry that was given on the lower time frames when markets were consolidating. If you remember in the rejection block video that I published, I mentioned that rejection blocks are usually one of the higher probability PDRAs to use whenever price is consolidating, whenever we are in a choppy price action profile, not in a trending market. Of course, in a trending market, you're probably going to do better with other blocks and maybe old rejection blocks, right? And of course, fair value gaps in a trending market. So here, going on the lower time frame, we rejected away from this 4-hour gap. When price came back down on the 15 minutes chart, let's head over there for a second. When price rejected here initially, then pushed to the upside, we came one more time to take liquidity. When we took liquidity, we created a rejection block in this area. I know it may not be the typical one that you're used to because it's not a swing high, a swing low, as in why is this long tail here? Well, that's true, and I agree with you on that. But when you go on an even lower time frame, you would potentially be able to catch the low of the week. So at this point, we're below the midnight opening price, which is the yellow line. We're below the new week opening gap, or the Sunday opening price, which is this blue line. So we're in discount, and our buyers were higher prices, right? Our buyers from the higher time frame was bullish. So at this point, when price was consolidating, exactly what I was saying, we ran internal highs, and then we don't respect perfectly this BC or this breakaway gap, gets tapped into, then gets disrespected, then run up again, then pushes lower again. This is the market profile where I would be considering using a rejection block as an entry and for a possibility to continue higher, especially considering the fact that this gap right here, this purple area, is the 4-hour gap, and I don't want a closure below the 4-hour gap. So I knew that there was a chance that we would play inside of it before pushing up in the PM session. So here we have a very clear rejection block, literally at the low of the day. We had a rejection block over there as an entry. So imagine if this is a crazy risk reward if this was your setup. If you entered there with a stop loss at the low of the rejection block, maybe consider taking partials at this high or the buy side liquidity that I pointed out in the live stream. If you were tuned in on the live stream, because I go live every few days. This was my buy side liquidity target for the day and the session. We didn't get that tagged until later in Asia session right now. And we can see actually it's even a New York session that we tagged it. And this was a 15-hour trade, a 15 risk reward trade. So you could be risking $1 here for the sake of a potential gain of 15, or you could be risking $1,000 here for the sake of a potential gain of $15,000. So that's the beauty of a high risk reward position, you know. And yeah, it's lower risk. But again, as I mentioned, it's usually the best when it comes to consolidating markets. If you somehow missed this entry and we saw this break of structure or market structure shift at this point when we closed above this high, and disrespected this CB, creating a new BC. This was a confirmation of a breaking market structure or shifting structure, market structure shift, whatever you want to call it. We then created another rejection block. Of course, we had multiple entries. You could have entered at the fair value gap. You could have entered at the mitigation block / order block, these two down close candles. And as usual, as we already mentioned, you could also enter the last PD array before sell side liquidity, which is this rejection block, which we got tagged into, created the low at what time? 12:20, literally in the middle of lunch. We swept liquidity, relative equal lows residing there. We swept liquidity, tapping into the only last PD array before we would possibly just take sell side. So we tagged into that. You could also have entered that as your second position if you entered this one already, which is basically going to be around the same level, targeting the same buy side liquidity. This is assuming that you're going to target that buy side liquidity. This is going to give you a 10-to-1 risk reward. If you don't target that buy side liquidity and if you decide to hold it through and hold to the equal highs, which is our main higher time frame draw on liquidity, you could possibly be looking for a 20-to-1 risk reward position. Of course, you'd have to hold it for 2 days, but that would be the case. If you entered the first entry over there, it would have been a 50-to-1 risk reward. So very small risk, very high reward, especially when you know where the high time frame is possibly going to be moving towards. Of course, if you get stopped out, you could look for another one. The nice thing about this is that it gives you so many tries. So if you are risking $100, as I mentioned already, you could possibly be gaining, if you're risking $100 times 30, if it's that stop loss instead, making this 30R, it will possibly be $3,000 profit after 2 days of holding, because I believe those equal highs are going to be cleared today, later in the New York session. So yeah, that's the first position that I wanted to give a review of. The next one is gold. I actually took this one. Gold yesterday, if you remember from the live stream, again, if you don't tune into the live stream, this is me telling you now to tune into the live stream. Whenever I do go live, just have your notifications on, subscribe below, smash the like button, of course, if you feel that you want to. And yeah, in the live stream yesterday, I talked about this position. I talked about the rejection block, how I wanted to take this trade, but I didn't, even though I'm the one that gave the signal, if you want to call it a signal. I didn't take the trade, and I said that it kind of sucked that I missed that completely, right? But I said it's okay, because I did manage to catch something on NASDAQ, right? So I did enter my swing positions on NASDAQ, so I can't get it all. I can't catch it all, so I decided to leave it be. So what happened today was, at this point, let me actually switch on the sessions so you'll be able to see. So notice here, during the Asia session, we swept the New York PM high, right? We swept the buy side liquidity, we went for sell side liquidity. When price was coming back up again with such a bullish momentum, I highlighted that exact Asia session high. I was telling myself, if my drawn liquidity is still this area, this fair value gap here, that's my main drawn liquidity, right? If that's my drawn liquidity, we could see a possible sweep of this high, tap into some sort of PD array before going lower. The only PD array I could spot, again, guessed it, was this rejection block. But then I thought to myself, you know what, a rejection block is just like every other PD array. Just because it's been used once doesn't mean it's the end of it all. Of course, you can't just keep pulling every inverted fair value gap and pulling it across time forever. Maybe if it plays some sort of significant role, like it's the first fair value gap ever in the month, maybe it could be that important, you could pull it across the whole month. But I don't see the need of pulling every single PD array, right? So I looked at that rejection block, but I told myself, well, that rejection block actually came from this rejection. What if we use a lower one that's closer, like this one right here? You can also agree with me that this is another rejection block. I'm going to delete this for the sake of not bringing confusion. So I brought out this PDRA. I knew it was a sketchy looking one because now I'm breaking through candles. This rejection block right here, I'm breaking through candles, but I said to myself, well, rejection blocks have one thing in common. We have a high risk reward ratio. So if it doesn't work out, all I'll be losing is a very little amount of money. For example, in this position, I was only risking $20. So what I decided to do was enter with this rejection block and not wait for this premium area, because this one is the closest one that I see after sweeping this liquidity level here. So I placed my stop loss at the high of the year. Actually, this is the all-time high. I can't even say all-time. I can't even say high of the year or high of the week, but that's the all-time high over there. I placed my stop loss there because I'm just not that crazy. I'm just not that crazy to try, and because we could actually retrace all the way to this one, you know. So I'm catering for this rejection block, and still this old rejection block, all at the same time. So let's label this as turtle soup, because that's what happened. And then yeah, so I entered with that position with my TP at this swing low. But again, rejection blocks, rejection blocks, rejection blocks. We have another one residing right here, right? We have another rejection block residing right here where we have these equal bodies and the long tail. So I knew that there was a chance, because this is still consolidating, there was a chance we could react from this area. So I decided to take off most of my positions here. Let me see if I can bring up my MetaTrader to show you the trade. And there, so this is my MetaTrader 5. You can see there, that's the liquidity sweep, and I got in exactly at those equal bodies right there. So yeah, and then of course you can see my first partial was over there, just a little bit of profit, nothing crazy, because this is a small account with fivers, and then the rest there at the inside of the rejection block. Even though my target and final TP was this sell side liquidity right here, I just took what I could, because I mean, it's just a small little scalp in a way. It's an intra-session trade, so yeah, I wasn't gonna hold it for full pool. And yeah, those were the two examples I thought I could give for the session, for the day, and as an extension of the previous videos on the channel. Anyways, yeah, cheers. See you guys in New York session. Bye bye.